Thank you for joining us. So, I want to talk about the evidence of, the Dutch disease, but really address the mining and the approach that is taking in Guyana today. So, the Alliance for Change, we remain deeply concerned about the mining industry and what is the rapid decline in terms of declaration of gold and also in terms of human rights abuses and the lack of responses to that. So the reason I'm saying that is because we want to talk about the Dutch disease and how it can afflict or how it seems to be afflicting us today. But we also want to raise awareness that this Dutch disease, when we talk about, must also bring forth that there are a lot of reports of accidents and death in the mining sector. There are no clear responses in terms of how the families or dependents of those who are injured or those who have lost their lives in the mining industry, in the mining pits, are being dealt with. So, what we're calling for is a rights based approach in terms of human rights protections, the economic rights, and environmental rights. So, taking all of that into context, what we're saying is that if we're focusing on gold, we want to talk about the numbers that are being, excuse me, the numbers that are being reported to us. Now, before COVID hit in 2020, the miners of Guyana produced and declared almost 700,000 ounces of gold. Then the price of an ounce of gold was approximately US 1700 or 1,700 USD. This was an equivalent of Guyana dollars 350,000. On the other hand, at the end of 2023, the average price of an ounce of gold was USD 2,000. And yet the miners produced and declared a paltry 209,000 ounces. Today, the price is approximately US $2,600 per ounce, which is USD 1,000 more than it was in 2020. But yet, we are told, with the reports that being declared, that production is plummeting. So there is a great contradiction here, perhaps a mystery. Irrefutable statistics show that in the past, as the gold price increased, the production also increased, as more persons were incentivized to enter the industry. The only acceptable explanation that can be given for why Guyana is the only country that is reversing this known economic trend is mismanagement, a disinterest in the plight of miners, among a lot of things to think about. The lawlessness that is allowed to take place at Marudi in South Rapanoni captures the essence of the government's don't give a damn, that attitude. And it's not only the South Rapanoni. When we talk about the situation of Chinese landing, who are still seeking justice and for control of their rights to their lands, the right to be free on their own lands, and the right to decide on what to do with their resources. Those are just a few of the situations that communities or individuals face here in Guyana as citizens. We have a situation where in the mining industry, whoever wants to mine can do so with no regard whatsoever for the communities and the environment. Now, the PPP came to office pledging to rebuild the mining industry, one that was obviously in better shape than it is now, and fooled the miners that they had a better offer to make than the coalitions. Statistics don't lie. There were hundreds of thousands more ounces of gold produced during the coalition's period in the office from 2015 to 2020 than in the corresponding period of the PPP. The coalition had built and restored hinterland roads, offered incentives, conducted lotteries for small and medium-scale miners, and provided greater superintendence of the industry to curtail lawlessness and smuggling. The PPP swept into office with sweet words of promise, but instead of the glorious days they proclaimed, a deep darkness has set in. Earlier in the year, President Ali declared that a major increase in gold is imminent. This is obviously a pipe dream or another empty campaign promise that no one has any serious intention of fulfilling. The backbone and frame of the mining industry is built around these hard-working Guyanese, coming from villages and small communities mostly, and not these mega companies that swoop in and make press announcements to drive up their stock prices and then sell out and leave. The ordinary miner needs a bailout in the same way as well that the farmers on the sugar industry gets a frequent bailout from the government. The AFC is informed that the president met the miners secretly at the beginning of the year and gave commitments that he and his ministers would facilitate their reasonable requests. However, at the end of the year, over 80% of the deliverables promised have not been fulfilled. Refer, for example, to the refusal to renew investment development agreements granted by the Ministry of Finance under Mr. Winston Jordan, the granting of tax incentives on par with the agriculture industry, the review of the mining legislation, excuse me, and the rehabilitation and opening up of vital road links, just to name a few. So there were a lot of promises. Now, to make the mining industry a lot more equitable and accessible, here are some recommendations that the AFC would like to make as our initial recommendations. So to have publicly available and accessible digitized maps showing concessions allocated in their various categories. This will help miners in all various categories of mining to be able to say what investments they can seek. And this goes for communities who are involved in mining as well. Another recommendation is to have publicly available the process used for allocation of concessions. In this way, all citizens are able to keep track of the process and who is involved and what allocations are being given, allocations which are the country's patrimony, the people's patrimony. We also seek a report on what land reclamations have taken place, a report on how many injuries and deaths we've had in the mining industry, and what responses the government has been able to give to ensure that the dependents are fully supported in the long term. Thank you.